Hello there, welcome back to Celtic World Order podcast. As always, I'm Steve O'Matt, and it's a warm welcome to you to join us here on the channel once again for another wee video. Well, it's came the last day of the season. Well, the league season is here. It's trophy day. It's became something of a normality at Celtic Park for us fans as we lift the trophy once again to rightfully stamp our mark as the finest, the best, the top team in Scotland, and rub a wee bit of extra salt into the wounds of our rivals. Tedious indeed. We're looking forward to it though. We welcome St Mirren to town, and it's a party. It's a party atmosphere. The sun will hopefully be continuing to shining as it has been all week, and of course there's whatever way you want to be celebrating it, where it's going to be in the park, where it's going to be in the park, where you're going to be down that Tron gate, where you're going to be down the pub, where you're going to be in the house, where you're going to be elsewhere. Enjoy it, be safe, and take care of yourselves, whatever you decide to do. Just look after yourself. That is the key point on a day like today, and more importantly, enjoy it, because we have earned it. People can tell us it's tedious, people can tell us it's boring, but they will never detract from the success and the hard work of Celtic side. Now, with that, there comes, of course, there's always got to be some level of drama, hasn't there? There's always got to be something that's came out in and around it, and we're here to talk about it. We'll get right in about it, but before we do, as we always say, welcome back to the channel. If you're one of our continued subscribers, but if you're one of our members, then thank you very much. We really do appreciate it. We're just over the 1600 mark. We've been around for just short of a year. In fact, just over a year and a half, thereabouts maybe now, and we appreciate every single one of you. If you're new, make sure you hit that subscribe. It costs you absolutely nothing. It helps us grow. It helps get the word out there, and we really want to make this channel bigger and better for yourselves, for ourselves, for anybody that loves good Celtic content. You want to get us elsewhere, catch us on X at CWPod 1888. Paddy does a TikTok if you like that. It's at Celtic World Order Podcast. Of course, we're on Blue Sky, we're on Spotify, plenty of ways to connect with the channel. So make sure you do that. So let's get ourselves right down to business. As we said, it is title party day. It is the trophy day at Celtic Park, and St Mirren roll into town. There's no such thing as a damp squib. Celtic are well and truly home and dry. The title has been official for a long time now. However, we've got just one eye on that cup final next weekend at Hampden, where we can make history once again with another treble. How tedious, how boring, but that's just the way it goes. Of course, with a wee dry run, if you will, against the opponents for that match in Aberdeen midweek, we put out a shadow side and we absolutely hammered them. So confidence has got to be high, and that makes you think about this game against St Mirren. How are we going to line up? What are we going to do? Are we going to experiment again? Or are we going to give the familiar faces that helped us pretty much secure this title get their day in the sun, so to speak? Personally speaking, if it was me, I would go with what we've done midweek, because if something isn't broke, don't try to fix it. And unfortunately, as we've seen with Rio Hatai, late on that, when we brought on some key players, some first picks, if you want to call it that, fortunately picked up an injury from him, and that is all she wrote. The season is over for Rio Hatai. And you've got to think that even though there's nothing on the line for us, we of course want to win. We always want to win, and we want to send the fans away happy and make the celebrations, a wee bit better by way of a win. You've got to have the sensible head on. If you're not, you've got to be thinking about protecting the assets, looking at the cup final. Regardless of what you think of Aberdeen, you want your best players available. And unfortunately for us, St Mirren still do have something to play for. There's a very slim chance that they can make a European spot, as they are sort of teetering around that position there, where Dundee United are just ahead of them, but they play Aberdeen. Again, interesting to see how that game pans out from a St Mirren standpoint, because certainly they don't have nothing to play for tomorrow, and they're going to be getting out there. They're going to be giving it their all. We know that Stephen Robinson's teams, we know what they're like. They're well organised, they're well drilled, they can be a bit physical at times. And just with that at the back of my mind, I'm thinking, do I want to risk playing my guys that I would preferably want to put into that cup final? The answer for me is no. I wouldn't want to be doing that. I would certainly look to give a few guys some game time, get the legs up to speed. For example, I'm looking at Alistair Johnson. As we know, he's just came back. I think it's imperative that he gets some game time. But similarly, I wouldn't start him. I'm thinking if we can take care of this game and get out of sight or whatever, bring these guys on, give them 20 minutes of that. Hopefully, with that point, if St Mirren are deed and buried, so to speak, but they've still got no fight left in them, then you might not get what we saw against Aberdeen, where they were just still snapping into tackles. That's for the manager to decide. But for me, for my money's worth, I'm thinking just keep things the way it was. And again, opportunity knocks, because look at what happened in that Aberdeen game. Fringe guys came in, fringe guys absolutely lifted their game, and fantastic. And that begs the question, because tomorrow, as well as my title party, as well as big decisions around, there's also a case of who could there be guys, could this be their Celtic swan song? Could there be guys who are pretty much you're never going to see there? Who are we thinking here? Well, the Greg Taylor one's interesting because it has been swinging about for a while now. Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? He's apparently got options here, there and everywhere. He wants to be a first choice. We know that. We've got Kieran Tierney coming back. Undoubtedly, he is going to be the first choice. With Jeffrey Schlupp come up, and I'm going to, be honest, I'll hold my hands up. I bought into it. At first, I thought, wow, this guy looks the part. Premier League player, experienced, physical. You can see he's got all the attributes, but he very, very slowly and surely faded away. I think the game against Rangers was the one that killed him off, and ever since then he's been the less seen. Jeffrey Schlupp, of course, he was wheeled back out against Aberdeen, a shadow Aberdeen side at that as well. And even in my watch, I thought, nah, I don't want to keep this guy about. Talk about phoning it in. Even against a weakened Aberdeen side, I personally thought that Jeffrey Schlupp looked absolutely garbage, and he looked very much like a guy who was up here for a paycheck, a wee medal, because he probably doesn't have many of them. In fact, I don't know if he does. That shows you how much I care about the guy. But yeah, Jeffrey Schlupp coming to Saudi Arabia near you soon. El Etafaki welcomes Jeffrey Schlupp. I can see that happening. That's the kind of thing that's happening. But Greg Taylor, he's started to get himself back into the side. There's been talk for the manager. He wants to come about. Will it be his last game? Personally, I don't think so. I certainly don't think so. And then, of course, there's the hopefuls, if you're the Scottish mainstream media, and hoping that all this will be Dyson Maeda, player of the year here, player of the year there, top form, apparent interest. I use the term apparent interest from down south, supposedly Fulham. But yeah, whatever. Could it be his last game? No, I don't think so. I really don't. I really don't think it's his last game. Absolutely not. I don't. I think if I was to go through that team, who would I say it's probably going to be the last game? Jeffrey Schlupp. Look at Jeffrey Schlupp, and that's it. But then again, as I say, opportunity knocks. Guys who you would have thought would be on the way out might dig their way back in. I'm looking at you, Big Mike, large Mike Nawrocki. Fantastic. Very limited game time. Phenomenal against Aberdeen. Gets a goal. Absolutely rock solid. And, the 3 games that he's been called in for this season, Hearts, Rangers, Aberdeen, well, you could argue he was one of the best players in each of those games. And he's been on the bench 18 times this season and unused as a sub. So clearly there is something there. We always know he doesn't have the quickest turn of pace versus, say, maybe Scales, or indeed versus Trusty. But he looks the part, does he not? Give this guy a chance. He's still here at 2028. Don't mean to cheap out here. Let's save ourselves some money, because he looks every bit the part. Now, I refuse to believe that Mike Nawrocki is not better than Stephen Welsh, who will be coming back. That's a guy who I would say probably might have played his last game for Celtic. I'm not having it. They tell me that he's not as good as Liam Scales. Again, no disrespect to Liam Scales. We've sang his praises many times on this podcast. However, I still don't think that he's any better than Mike Nawrocki. If you gave him that exact same run in a team, I refuse to believe it. Let's see if he can get a game tomorrow. Let's see if he'll kick on today. Sorry, what I'm talking about. Today at this game, let's see if he can kick on from where he left off against Aberdeen, and his cameos throughout the course of the season. The big thing, of course, is going to be James Forrest. This is it. This is the final. This is the last opportunity for James Forrest to get that league goal to keep the best streak since The Undertaker at WrestleMania going. This is the one. If I'm a Celtic player, I am trying to put every single ball in and around the box on his foot. It must happen. It needs to happen. I hope it happens. He's been a tremendous servant. And I know it's a wee side personal accolade. It's a bit of a sideshow. But what a run it's been, and it would just seem so disappointing if he couldn't, because in the past few games he's been that close. It's been razor thin margins. It's been the toe of a goalkeeper. It's been a hand here and there. It's been a couple of inches past the post. The man without shoulders needs to score. It's as simple as that. Make it happen, Celtic. Get it down. But anyway, back to some of the stuff around this game. As it says, you've seen there, it says title lifts, trophy lifts, and Tainted Tifos. What am I talking about here? Well, of course, we know that this weekend, tomorrow, today, whatever time you're watching this, it is going to be the title party. And of course, it's the standard Trongate thing. We've seen the fan pages are putting out, the ultras groups have already put out their banners, and this is what we've got here. Of course, the Trongate title party. The must obviously say the unofficial title party, because it is more of a decision that's been made rather than one that's been granted. And of course, on the other side there, you can see for the preparations before the cup final against Aberdeen, they are doing, as they done previously, the standard meet-up in Glasgow Green for a walk down towards the stadium. Now, on the back of this, we know that there's been a wee bit of sort of tension, a wee bit's probably putting it lightly, between the Green Brigade, the boys, and the board. It's went to that stage where it's incommunicado. Communications once again, unfortunately, have broken down, and there was a request for Tifos to be put in, and they were refused. We saw the North Curve X page, they put out the correspondence that they got with regards to the request to do a Tifo previously, and they were basically told no, and essentially it was under review because of past behaviours, etc., etc. And a lot of that came off the back, as we know, of things with Pyro, and of course there was the Big McFarlane Tifo as well, which raised a lot of eyebrows and drawn some complaints from various quarters of commentary out with the club. Some fans, some external fans, some media, so on and so forth. Either way, it drew some complaints, and the club have made their decisions to revoke all privileges, we want to put it that way, for the Green Brigade, for these ultras groups to come in and do their usual standard displays, which is a negative. There's no doubt about it. The Tifos that we've seen on trophy days have been fantastic, for flying the flag days on the opening and at the closing of the seasons. They've been some of the best Tifos that we've seen, not just from a Celtic perspective, but quite arguably from European football standards. Some of the most phenomenal, colourful, vibrant Tifos and displays, and they've become something of a hallmark of the fan groups and of these big occasions. Unfortunately, that's not going to be happening. Now, they did put this out here, and as you can see, fan Tifos banned, outsourced Tifos planned. And I don't know who has provided this photo, it's irrelevant, but you can see that something's getting laid out here. Now, it would be very much foolish to say that it didn't get a bad response, because it was really mixed on this one. And I don't know where you stand on this one. Let us know in the comments below. Of course, this is a pre-recorded episode here, so if you are watching this, I can't reply live, but if you leave some comments down below, your thoughts on this, we'll always try to get back to you. Yes, so the club have refused to permit the standard fan put on Tifo. That's not happening. And from that picture, it's clear that they have, I don't know who they've done it, it's been outsourced. I don't know, I imagine they go to a design company or something like that, they come up with something and they get it laid out, and it's been done off the back of the club, which is obviously quite a wee bit foolish on multiple levels. One, it's obviously isolating fans, it's isolating fan groups, but also as well, it's costing them money. Now, I know we are absolutely rolling in the money, but when you've got fan groups who fundraise and, essentially put this on and create all the colour and everything else that goes with it, but bear in mind that the club also like to cash in on. At times we've seen displays being used as pictures that have been framed and sold in the superstore and the likes. they are now going to spend whatever amount it costs. It's going to be in the thousands, of course, for something like that. Let's not kid about here. Again, small in comparison to what we have, but they're still going to go out and spend needlessly money on a display because they've went, oh, we're not going to have that thing that we've normally have that's normally put on for us. Oh, this could be quite embarrassing, so let's put it on. And yeah, the reaction to it, as you would imagine, has been lukewarm and mixed. For everybody that has turned around and says it won't stop me, there's been plenty of people saying this will fall flat in his face, this is ridiculous, this is soulless, and as it says there, tainted Tifos. There's this idea that it is going back to, as we've seen, where you have big English clubs who have put these Tifos on prior to games, looking at like Arsenal and stuff like that, Champions League games or big games, and they've laid them out and they've done it. They've done it for the fans because they don't have the same passionate, invested fan groups who are going out their way to put these things on. And a lot of people are saying it's corporate FC. It's very much a case of, paint by numbers football fandom. It's tourist stuff. There's no real heart and soul. And it's, that'll look good. Let's put it out. And there's been some cracking jokes actually, but I wouldn't be surprised if it says something like 2 weeks left to renew your season ticket, buy now, or new home top out now, the date or whatever. Obviously the complete and utter jest. It's going to be something. It's going to be actually interesting to see what it is. Let me know your feelings on this one. I mean, I am fully on board with, what people are saying. I would absolutely preferred a fan-derived one that had real thought, real passion, and something put into it, and it would be, we know the standard that it's going to be. Of course, if you go to a design company or whatever, you can literally get them to produce you anything. It could be an absolute blockbuster. But the problem is, are we going to get the investment for the fans in it? Are they going to take part? Are they going to hold up their peace? I can say probably right now, I'd say with great certainty that you're not, if there's a piece or pieces down the Green Brigade section, if there's pieces over the boys, chances are they're definitely not holding them up. So you're going to have big patches in your tifo straight up. Have the club thought about this? Does it extend into these areas? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see, won't we? Kick-off, we'll need to wait and see. What I would say is as much as I agree in terms of it's a bit soulless and it's a bit corporate and it's a bit generic, I wouldn't want it to not be seen because, and I know it's a small thing, we often will sit and we'll comment on some of the Rangers tifos and how they're poorly, engaged with, and they're like a half-finished jigsaw, and it's quite embarrassing. And again, I know it's a small thing, but fine well that if nobody gets involved in this tifo and it's wee patches here, there and everywhere, you are going to be made a laughing stock of. People are going to laugh at it. They're going to point and go, look at the state of that trophy day, and that's the state of it today. And no matter what level of fighting and saying, but it wasn't put on with the fans, Joe Public don't care about that. And I know you shouldn't, man, who cares? We don't care what they think and all that stuff. Right? I get it. But at the same time, I don't want that wee bit of embarrassment, because I'd be a total redneck, wouldn't it, if it was like a handful of folk holding up their piece and then just big blocks or nothing. And I think, again, when we talk about being some of the greatest fans in the world, it would totally belie that, where you're not taking part. But then on the flip side, I know I'm sort of sitting the fence, and then at the same side, I totally understand where people are coming from and saying, if we get on board with this, if we support this, then the fact that the board will just think, well, that's cool, we can do what we want, we'll do it all the time. I totally get it. I just feel that for this occasion, for the trophy day, maybe play the game a wee bit. Because I'm very curious, first and foremost, to see what it could be, what this tifo could be. And of course, I don't want a damp squib and a flat start to what should be an absolute cracking day. That's where I'm at with it. But anyway, carrying on, they also released another statement, and it was all around about the, as I say, the Trongate meeting, the standard Trongate meeting, which became the norm now. As I said when I was on with Brian the other day, I feel like this thing's really a sort of, not a sort of, it factually is, off the back of course, when we've seen the Rangers win their one title and all went mental in town, and it was this feeling of, well, we've won the league now, let's show them how it should have been done, let's show them how to not get in trouble. Now again, I always am very much try to be level and objective about this. And as I says, if that's your bag, then cool, go and knock yourself out, go and do it. Be sensible, be safe, be responsible. Don't cause any hassle. Don't do anything that will get yourself in trouble. You're there representing yourself. You're representing the fans. You're representing the club. Just remember that. At the end of the day, it's that we can't spice this up anyway. It's a unofficial, unauthorised public gathering, and it will raise eyebrows from the council, of course, from the authorities, from the public, tenants, residents, shopkeepers, because it is going to inconvenience quite a lot of people. Whether you like to hear that or not, it is true. That is what's happening. It's going to, piss off a lot of people, to put it lightly. But anyway, we sat there the other day and we spoke about it, and we says, what's the idea? Would the club get involved in this? Should they try and make it official? Should they try and make it a ticketed event? Should it be in around the footprint stadium? Should they look to apply permission to use for Glasgow Green and have it as a sort of authorised thing? Of course, similarly to this Tifo thing, we turned around and we says, well, the problem is you'll have people saying, you're not telling me what to do, you're not telling me how to celebrate, and that's the thing. It's a rock and a hard place. Yes, I think that the club should at least be making the offer and try and engage and do something with it. But at the same time, I think that you will get a lot of people who will go to it, but you'll get a lot of people who just go, you're not telling me what to do, and they'll still do these things anyway. So I don't think anything official getting set up is really going to change this precedence that's been set with these street parties. And, that's the thing. It just seems that it'll be the norm. Hopefully, Celtic continue to be the ones that are celebrating. However, let's just say it was Rangers, Hearts, Hibs, whoever, you're going to get something like this. That is now, unfortunately, going to be the norm. I say unfortunately because I'm still being objective about it. It does cause a lot of chaos, whether you like it or not. It is facts. But anyway, this interested me because the North Curve put out a statement. It says, as another successful season draws to a close, we'd like to thank the Celtic Sport for continued backing. Your moral and financial support sustains the Celtic ultra scene, which we've been particularly grateful for, given the cost of living challenges coupled with the crippling costs of following Celtic. Of course, we know season tickets have went up. We know that you've had the Newcastle friendly. Days gone by, you're getting tickets free on your season book. Not happening this season. Boys Celtic celebrated their 10th season. Meanwhile, next season, the Green Brigade their 20th season. For both groups, these respective milestones mark survival in an environment pitted against us and has only been possible because you have embraced what we do. Fundamentally, we exist to support and celebrate Celtic. We believe we add value to the overall Celtic experience while accepting that our style is not favourable for all. And I think that's fair. I've said this a million times. I don't have any skin in the game. I appreciate the noise that the ultras groups make. At times, I don't necessarily agree with their methods. I always think that, like the pyro, and when you're told don't do things and they continue to do it. I've said the times I've used the phrase that for all the good they give with one hand, they always take away a bit away with the other. They do fantastic charity stuff and that. As I say, how they choose to do it, I'm not part of it. That's up to them. They've ultimately got to make their own decisions and understand that there could be ramifications. Anyway, they've says rooted in their existence and believe that all fans deserve more from the game. I think that's fair. There is an experience there. There is a volume. There's a sound. There's an atmosphere. And it is, you've noticed that when they're not there, that it is a bit warm at times. Over recent months, we have liaised with ultras groups across Scotland about to achieve a fairer deal for football fans. Again, this is about the ticket and stuff. We've seen the price that they were charged for the away game in Dundee United, for example, and it was crazy. It was high, and trying to drive a sensible amount. Similarly, we see in Germany and stuff, where there's price caps. They are campaigning for that, and it's extended beyond the Celtic ultras groups. And we learned that while Celtic comfortably lead Scottish football on the park, off the park, in relation to fan engagement, Celtic are basically behind us, saying that we're behind the curve. Our engagement with fans isn't quite there. The perfect example of this is the price increase, as I just said, in season tickets, which ironically lost 2 matches in 2023. Another example is the restrictions on fan Tifos. Again, the requests were made and they were told no, while cynically seeking to replace these with outsourced efforts, as I just showed their post there. A final example of communications on any fan issue, which typically feed into a derogatory narrative of Celtic or football fans generally. Now, this is the part that interested me. The Trongate title party is the most recent example of this. It is another example of police authorities and football clubs disregarding the role and importance of fans. Despite several months' notice, there was no will to engage with fans on this issue. There is no framework, culture, nor will to engage with fans on any issue. As another long and expensive season draws to a close, we encourage fans to celebrate in the fashion they deem fit, irrespective of any intimidation or castigation of those who already look down on us. Now, this is the part that interests me. We sat here and we says, would there be an appetite? Would there be a desire for fan groups, for ultras in particular? I mean, I'm not looking at Joe Public fans, because if Celtic put on something in and around the footprint of the stadium, you know fine well it would sell out, right? Of course it would. Of course it would. The big question would be is would ultras groups attend this thing? Some might, they all might, but they also might not at all. Now, I find it interesting that they're asking that question, but also the wording of it. Now, again, I'm just looking at it subjectively. They've says, despite several months of notice, i.e., you know we've won the league, you know we're going to do this, how are you going to deal with it? They have says that there has been no engagement or will to engage with the fans. Now, this is talking about the club, and of course, it's also not just the club, but that's extending further beyond it. Now, the question I asked the other day is if this is such a big thing for the ultras groups, why don't they engage? Now, this is what I'm saying. This is the problem. You've got two forces. You've got the board, and then you've got the fans, and they're going like that. Nobody wants to be seen as the one to bend the knee and make the first move. Now, of course, you should always be thinking, or you would expect to think, that the club will value all their fans above their own agenda, and engagement with them, their opinions, their thoughts should be absolutely paramount. You know, that's pretty standard to think that you would care for those people because they provide so much value in terms of atmosphere, attendance, but also the amount of money they pump into the club, season books, replica jerseys, so on and so forth, that you would want to try and keep them sweet. Now, of course, we know that you're never going to keep ultras groups fans sweet because of the conflicting ways that they expect. That you've got the club standard of what they think fans should be doing, and you've got the ultras group saying, as it says, celebrate, do what you want as you see fit. In some cases, again, just being honest, sometimes the way they see fit ends up with fines and stuff. And again, I know that they raise money and they pay for them stuff, but the club will still be looking at it and going, well, you need to play by the rules. So this is the problem. None of them want to give up any ground to the other. And that idea of you were noticed, you should have engaged with, and again, I'm assuming that beyond the club, this extends to the council and this extends to the authorities. I'm just throwing it back and asking, it's easy to turn around and say after the event, oh, you've not done anything about that. Well, if you're saying you're going to do it, why is nobody from one of these groups asked the question, went to the council and says, by the way, this is going to happen. What are you doing about it? Now, I'm not saying they necessarily want to do it face to face because they probably don't want to be seen as a figurehead or outed or named, or I don't know. But has there been a letter sent to anybody? Has there been any sort of dialogue from their side? It's all right saying, well, releasing a statement the night before and saying, no, you didn't bother talking to us. What's happening? And this is what I mean. As I says, I've made it clear. I think that there needs to be dialogue. I think there needs to be something to arrange it, and I think there needs to be something more sensible because, it's not to piss on the party. I do, just from when I remove myself of the whole Celtic side of things, it causes massive, disruption to people, and it will continue to do so for more. As I said the other day when I was on with Brian, can you imagine having a shop? Can you imagine having just, I don't know, not like a boozer or like a carry-out shop? Can you imagine having like a clothes shop or something that was right in the Trongate? Like your entire Saturday's fried because of that. It becomes a wee bit sort of selfish in that respect, and so I just felt that the wording in that was interesting because it's like, oh, we told you, what are you going to do about it? I'd just throw that back and say, have they done anything? I don't know, maybe they have. It'd be great to hear if they had done something, because if they had done something and then get blanked, I can totally understand that stance to go, you're not getting involved, you're not answering us anything, you're not giving us any options. But that just interested me, because it's the first time that I've actually read anything from the fans groups that's turned around and went, we were planning on doing this. We've not had any idea or word about how it's going to be like ran or policed or supported or whatever. Are the council going to put out more bins? Is there going to be a cordoned off area? What can we expect? Again, the way that you're looking at it is, well, we're turning up and you're going to complain after the event, so what have you done about it? But then again, at the same, if you flip that over and you say, well, if you approached them and went, you don't want this, this is unauthorised because we've not made an application for it, can we maybe try and get it as arranged as an actual thing? So there you go. That I just found that very, very interesting, as I say. And of course, we know there's also the conflict, because there's going to be an Orange Order march going on in the nearby vicinity, which, as we know, was applied for through the council application and was obviously granted. And yeah, that just seems like a recipe for disaster. But as we said in the show the other day, I think there's obviously multiple reasons as to probably why that's happened. First and foremost, I guess the council are just looking at it and going, well, they applied, you didn't. We can't say no to a group who did, because people who didn't are there. Whether you agree with that or not is neither here nor there. I think that's just looking at it objectively and factually, that's probably the way the council are going to look at it, and also probably not wanting to rock the boat, so to speak. Because we've seen the amount of tensions that there's been around about walks and parades and stuff, of all different sort of walks of life and things in recent times. They probably just don't want the hassle, and they just went, aye, no worries, we'll deal with it, which is, if we're honest, a bit short-sighted. But it is what it is, and hopefully, touch wood, it goes without occasion. It goes absolutely smoothly, and that both fans or both groups are kept apart and that there's no hassle. That would be the ideal situation. I'm not going to hold my breath on that one, but will remain to be seen. Anyway, let's just get back to the football and let's get in about the other chat. So as we know, title day, trophy lift, and then of course we'll get the Aberdeen game to look at. So as we say, how are we going to line up? And I think for me, just to come back, as I said at the start, I would do exactly what we've done against Aberdeen. I think now that we know that Hatate's out, that's been unfortunately confirmed by the manager. That horrible tackle on him at the end by Papagay, who, if we're being honest, probably shouldn't have been on that pitch at all. To get there, a wee bit short-sighted for the manager. As I say, there's guys that you want to get a wee bit of time in their legs because you want to keep them kind of sharp for that cup final. But when you saw how much hammer throwing was going on in that game, I was really, really, really surprised that he put on these sort of midfielders. I had this conversation with a friend the other day, and he says, well, you can't work off of what might happen. You can't let that affect, the ifs, buts and maybes, the hindsight and all that. You can't allow that to affect the plan. If the plan says these guys need to get X amount of minutes in their legs to get them up to speed, then you've got to go with it. You've got to trust that they'll get through it. And of course, that's what he's done. I think that obviously leaves an opportunity now, because the injury to Hatate, opportunity not. Could it be young McArdle? We got a wee cameo from him and he looked fantastic. He looked well assured. He looked technically good. He looked sharp. And he looked like a real promising talent. I know it's a very, very small sample size, but hey, why not? What better opportunity to give him than that? Of course, then you've got to ask yourself, look at Bernardo. Bernardo needs to get himself back into the game. I didn't think he was great against Aberdeen. I thought by his standards, he was pretty damn poor, actually. McCowan, could he be carrying a wee knock? He get kicked about a wee bit as well. So there is options there. But for me, I would definitely like to see young McArdle get an opportunity against St Mirren. Perfect time to do it. Is it going to make any difference with regards to the cup final? For my take, nah, it's not. He might get a couple of minutes if we're well and truly ahead, as we were in Aberdeen come the game at Hampden, but I don't think it's going to affect in terms of him getting into a starting lineup. So this is his opportunity. Let the boy shine. Give him a full half. Give him 60 minutes. Give him the usual 65 or 70 minutes before we make the substitution and do that. But of course, as the season comes to a close, we've also, we look beyond the cup final. We've got to be thinking, what's going to be happening going into the summer. And of course, the big question has been around about players who we're going to get in, who's going to leave, and of course Champions League, seeded or unseeded. Well, there's still plenty for us, even after our domestic football finishes, there's plenty for you to keep your eye on, because there is still a very good chance that Celtic can be seeded. As it stands at the moment, there's a couple of dominoes that have fallen which are going to help us out. Bodo Glimt, Tate Kerry, they are no longer in the equation to affect whether Celtic are going to be seeded. Shakhtar Donetsk, also not in the equation because they cannot win their league. That helps us out big time. Red Bull Salzburg, similarly, cannot win their league. Helps us out massively. Olympiacos, straight into the Champions League. So again, another one that takes us out. Now, this is the interesting one. This is one you've got to listen to. So, Dinamo Zagreb, Fenerbahce, Copenhagen. We need just one of them to fail in their endeavours, and Celtic will become a seeded team. Now, as it stands, Dinamo Zagreb are currently second in their league, 1 point behind the league leaders with 2 games to play. So it could still happen. They could still finish second, and if that domino falls, Celtic will become seeded. That is good news. The second team, Fenerbahce, they are joint first, but they're behind on goal differences, and again, 2 games to play. And the last one is Copenhagen. Now, as it stands at the moment, they are on top of the league by a point with 3 games to play. Copenhagen, they are a wee bit more sort of robust. They're a bit more tried and tested. I know we can say Dinamo Zagreb and Fenerbahce, but those leagues have sort of been round and up and down. Copenhagen are normally a banker, so I'm kind of looking beyond them, but looking at the other two, if Dinamo Zagreb or Fenerbahce fail to win their league, then good. Celtic will be seeded, and that will help us massively. Now, of course, we're looking at Champions League. We've got injuries. We've got Jota out 6 to 9 months. Massive, huge, brought him back. Really big, strong attacking player. Somebody that we're hoping to get a good pre-season and really, really kick on. There's a rumour mill switching about, Hatate. He's apparently always been gaining interest with people. And of course, Daizen Maeda. I think of all the players on their squad, Daizen Maeda cannot be sold. He cannot be sold whatsoever. Do everything we need to do to keep him. Hatate, with this injury, it'll be interesting. He says that he's probably going to be back for pre-season, but of course, with an injury, that could be a positive for us, because that could, keep a lot of people off the scent. Because if he's injured, you would probably just go to pivot and move on, because most teams, unlike Celtic, usually try to get their transfer business done early and get these folk in early to get them hitting the pre-season and get them around them. So if he's sitting there injured, as pre-season kicks off, it might well put off a couple of sort of teams. And for me, I'm all right with that. I'm quite happy with that. Happy days. But of course, it comes round to who are we going to potentially get in, or as I've said, well, who's going to leave? Because there's a couple of names here that I just want to talk about before we finish up. And of course, that is the first one, is a winger, because Jota's out. Well, Marco Tilio, remember Marco Tilio? He's likely to come back, currently out at Melbourne FC on loan. I don't know if you saw it, but there was a press conference with his manager who was absolutely singing his praises. Now, again, I'm not going to sit here and say that the Australian A-League is fantastic, right? It's not. It's of a standard. It is of an okay standard. But as we've seen with the resurgence of, young Yang, who's been coming on, he's been obviously putting in the hard work, he's been listening, and he's been something of a sensation since he sort of led that purple patch and kicked on, and he had a great game against Aberdeen. So he came from a league that probably isn't too far off the standard of the Australian A-League. So you can, with the right application and attitude, get a good player here. In terms of Tilio, there was great excitement about him. We all saw the highlight reels. I know everybody can look great on YouTube, but didn't quite work out. Don't know if it was a clash of personalities, if it wasn't fit, what it was. But anyway, shipped back out over there, and it seems that he's been doing very, very well, at least from his manager standpoint. And I suppose that is the only thing truly that matters. If your manager singing your praises, you must be doing something right. And at 23, as a right winger, it gives us options, because, we've got Yang coming out of that fold, and he can be used as an option. We've got Nicholas Kuhn. He's another guy who there was that wee bit of interest around him. There was the whispers that teams were going to be involved or looking at him. That could still well happen during the summer. Now, I'm not saying Tillio's going to be a replacement for him, but wouldn't it be nice to bring somebody back and at least have a potential option sitting there, whether it's just going to complement what you've already got, should Nicholas Kuhn stay about, or gives you an okay-ish or good backup for whoever else you buy in. In terms of a season, he's played 1,250 minutes, 5 goals and 5 assists. Take that at face value. Take it as you see it. But certainly, could there be a future for, Tillio? Who knows? He needs to come back with the right attitude, and then more importantly, he needs to come back and show that he wants it. I think that's the main thing. Speaking of guys who really need to show that they want it, well, it's Joey Palmer. Went out on loan at Olympiacos. He's got another medal. He's going to have 2 winners' medals this season. Lucky him. But it's not quite worked out. 12 appearances, 1 goal in a mere 515 minutes. Olympiacos have said, it's not happening. We're not taking him. We're not going to trigger that obligation to buy, or not obligation, sorry, option to buy. They're not interested. He's not done enough despite going over there and getting some starts in the early, and then he faded out, fell away. How it sounds familiar, doesn't it? He fell away and it's not quite worked. For me, Louis Palmer, is there a comeback for him? Personally, I don't see it. I just don't see it. I don't see it happening. I think maybe a guy like Tillio, he might come back with a bit between his teeth, but I think Louis Palmer, if you can't go over to Greece, no disrespect to the Greece League, but if you can't go over there and be playing for, like Celtic, one of the best, or clearly from winning the league, the best team in that league, and you can't be up for it. People come on about environment and all that in Scotland. If you can't go over there, but the sun's splitting the trees, and it'll be a far more vibrant and exotic sort of climate to play your trade in and be a footballer than in Scotland, let's be honest. If you can't get up for that and you're not breaking into a team over there, that speaks volumes for me, and I don't think he's got it in him to come back. So I think that could be a guy who is probably going back out and on again. Ideally, I think if you're going to sell him, you're probably going to make a loss on him. Remains to be seen. But then again, we've got other guys that are out there that seem impressing. Not, of course, attacking options, but we spoke about Narodsky, we spoke about that. Could there be a way back for him? I hope so. But a guy who I think there's no way back for, but he seems to be doing quite well out on loan, is, of course, Gustav Lagerbielke. They seem to quite like seeing the money by him, so happy days. Get the big man off the books, get him over there, and get some more money in the coffers. That will do for me. And, of course, there is Stephen Welsh at Michelin. Is he going to come back? Is he going to just... is he going to try and force his way back into the squad? Personally, I think the big man needs to move on. He's been here enough seasons. He's had enough chances, and I don't see him as really levelling us up. When you look at what's there, Carter Vickers, Trusty, Scales, Narodsky, well, I think for me, for my money, that looks decent enough, and I would still anticipate that Celtic need to go out and buy another decent centre half. There could be a full pre-season will be the sort of acid test for Big Trusty. He's been up and down. He personally, he's not really convinced me at this moment in time. I still think that from what I've seen, I think Narodsky looks better in this very small sample size that I've seen him, and I even think that despite his flaws, Scales is still better than Trusty as well. So I think that if you get those two guys that are better than you, Celtic are going to look to bring in somebody who is somewhere slightly better than them or somewhere in between, and that just throws a cat amongst the pigeons in terms of that. So I don't think Lagerbielke, I don't think Welsh, it would be really, really bloated. It would literally be filler for the sake of it. Guys who are going to get nowhere near it, and I think that'll be interesting to see how that one pans out. But anyway, in terms of other things that are going to happen, you've seen it. And of course, we always talk about wanting to buy players, and to do that, well, we're going to be generating money. We always generate hundreds of money. Of course, we do millions of money from the Champions League, for winning the league, for all these tops that we print left, right, and centre. But of course, we always do sell on causes, don't we? And the good news is that there's going to be more money, anywhere between 5.5 and as much as 7 million quid from Jeremy Frimpong. Because eventually, after all the chat, all the rumours, all the is he no going, is he going, who's he going to? Liverpool are stepping up, and reports are saying it's pretty much signed, sealed and delivers, and personal matters are not going to be a problem. Jeremy Frimpong will sign for Liverpool, and well, there we go. Celtic have a healthy selling clause, and as I say, anywhere between the lower end, 5.5 million, up to as much as about 7 million coming into Celtic gratis. That's good business when you end up getting a guy who, bear in mind, it wasn't even a full season into that Celtic team. When collectively, yeah, I know it's split out of 2 spells, but 17 million for a guy that you got for literally nothing. And as I say, I felt that would he have been a better player if he stayed at Celtic? Well, potentially. I think that was just a very peculiar situation there, and I think that relationships had broke down, they moved on. But at that time, if you says you will get a collective 17 million for him, well, I tell you what, you would have absolutely have bit your hand off for that. Do I think he would have? Did I ever think he was going to turn into the Jeremy Frimpong that we see now? Honestly, no. I thought he would be similar to like Juranovic. He'd go and he would go to a club and he would just do all right. I'd genuinely never thought he had those levels in him. But there you go. All good. And, again, the Celtic player trading model bears fruit once again, because that'll be a healthy chunk getting into that budget. And of course, this is what's going to be interesting, because you look at the amount of money that we spent this summer here. We've done the Champions League. We gave a good fist at it. We gave a good account ourselves. That's going to whet the appetite of the players. It's going to whet the appetite of, I'm sure, of the board when they see the money and they see the potential, but also the manager. And I think this season, this summer, is definitely make or break. This is where the board need to put up or shut up, because that manager, BrendanRodgers, he's wanting backed. Will we go out and spend as much as we did in the summer there? Well, you've seen the video I done months and months ago about the smoke and mirrors, the deception of Celtic's transfer policy. We brought in a lot of money through sales, Matt O'Reilly, and obviously all the fringe garbage that we got rid of. And that funded a lot of it. And we still turned a good profit at the end of things. If Celtic are not going to sell a big asset, 1 or 2 assets, will they do it? That is the question now. I know 5.5 to 7 million, that's a good starting point to get at least one player in. But will they go and do it again? Don't know. Remains to be seen. I would like to think so. I think it's going to be as much. No, I don't. But I don't think there's any reason why Celtic shouldn't be looking at going and spending the guts of maybe 20 million quid and getting 2, maybe 3 players out of that kind of money. I think that seems reasonable. 20, 25 million pounds, considering the amount we've done. And I would be saying spend that with not losing any of your key assets. Because as I said there's a lot of sort of excess players. There's a lot of fat still to be trimmed and guys to be moved on. You can still make money out of. Look at Bernabe, for example. Who would have thought would have made that kind of money out of him? Absolutely nobody, but it happened. So why can't it happen with Lagerbielke? Why can't it happen with Palmer? Why can't it happen with Welsh? Why can't it happen with some of the other guys that are, hanging about the squad that folk would rather see the back off? It's possible. Celtic have got to do it. But anyway, that's us. And 2 seconds. That's us. And thanks for joining. Sorry, I do apologise. Watching the other day, I said I was going to go out and attempt to build a shed. Worst thing I've ever done, because I've just gubbed my back again and I'm a wee bit of discomfort. So sorry for me going on a wee can of hot tin roof there at the end. But that's the first world problems for Stevo here. But anyway, thank you to every single person for joining us. I say enjoy Trophy Day. Enjoy success, enjoy celebrating our success. If you are going to go to one of the unauthorised fan marches or fan processions or fan gatherings, take care of yourself. Don't do anything that will get you in trouble. You're there, represent yourself well, represent the club, represent the fans. As I say, just stay safe and look after each other if you decide to do that, okay? Enjoy the game. We've got another game to look forward to a week over. As we say, my God, this season, it's been tedious, hasn't it? It's been absolutely tedious. Thanks for joining us. Take care of yourself. Enjoy the game. And as always, hail, hail. We'll be back to talk at some point through the week. See you later. Bye-bye.